Hello, everyone, and welcome to this podcast from the Light Review. And today we're with Inventronics, and we are talking with Mark G. And we're also talking to Juan Ferrari, project director at Hoare, because we want to get the designers' aspect on controls. And I'm going to put my hand up here and say that I know that through my career, I've occasionally been lazy and I've left it up to the manufacturers who I trust to package up a specification with equipment that I trust. But I think that's me being a bit of an outlier these days. So, Juan, um, what does this situation look like now? You come into a project, you're taking a brief from a client, you're now carrying the full burden of coming up with a specification. How does that then work for you in terms of our friends across the way at Osram stroke Inventronics these days?
Well, hello, John. Thank you for the invitation. It's nice to be in this panel with you, with Mark, and with the people that would be listening to this. Um, I, I, I think that the most important thing is that we don't work as silos. So there is a little bit of what you say that we end doing sometimes, which is trusting other people to carry out certain bits of the work to playing to our strengths. So building bridges is what we're trying to do at the moment, to making sure that we get the best possible support from everybody. We have an enormous challenge in regards to people and planet. There is a climate emergency, and there are all sorts of things that exceed our level of expertise as lighting designers. And the only way of actually going through those things and being successful in the end is actually making sure that you build bridges and align with manufacturers, clients that want to achieve the same objectives that you want to achieve. So it is fundamental that we work together, and that we don't work as silos, and that we don't pass the responsibility to others. So having a holistic approach of the work that we do is absolutely critical also. So making sure that we don't only take the responsibility when it comes to lighting controls as lighting designers, that we actually work alongside electrical engineers, manufacturers, ICT specialists, building intelligence specialists, all of the connection points that you would expect to have, or all of the connections that the controls need to have in terms of lighting with other devices. So we work together and find the best solution. Working on our own
Okay.
won't get us anywhere really.
And I agree with that. Does that mean that you kind of hold what you would say, a sort of a nodal connection here, that everything is rooted through you, that you are the client's representative on Earth, or do you have to? I know, or do you again have to turn around to the M&E consultant, for example, and say this is the kind of package we're looking to do. Is that okay with you?
Yeah, I'm not sure if we are the node. I think that we are part of a team. We are a fundamental part of the team. But if we don't exist as a client representative or as a knowledgeable part in terms of trying to get across anything that has to do with user experience, well-being, uh, anything that has to do with a sustainability strategy, maybe there is something missing there that is fundamental. But so is the person that is actually wiring it all up, for a better word, or wirelessly connecting one thing to the other. So is the manufacturers. I think that we want to be seen as a fundamental clog of an engine, but so is manufacturers. So there are other bits and pieces of the whole conversation, and it's important that we all again work together to succeed, to have a successful outcome. Working on our own, it's not recommendable nowadays.
No, 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 no. Mark, you're in this round table. Okay, it's not a nodally thing. Everybody's in there as the team. Where do you see yourself? I mean, because here's what I'm conscious of. Your direct relationship is going to be with the manufacturer who's going to put your kit inside a fixture, but Juan has a brief, which is a performance brief, and the luminaire comes out from that brief, but also what's going into the luminaire is part of that brief. So your relationship with the designer, I'm now kind of guessing a little bit, is much deeper than what you might originally expect. Do you expect to have those conversations with Juan if you're outside of the project table, so that we can square off what it is that Juan's looking for and what you can achieve, which can then go into someone else's fixture? Is it yeah, is it that kind of mesh?
Yeah, absolutely. Our project team will deal with the likes of Hawley, Juan, and his team there, and they will sell the products in as best they can and introduce the products and discuss the products with them and the benefits and features, etc. And then that kicks off the process that Juan's team will then start to make a design and design in some products. So let's take Flex, for instance, which is the more common one for us. They would then design that in, and then obviously that then goes out. Eventually, it gets into the tender market. So we'd be involved within the tendering process because we'd start getting inquiries from customers. Job A, John Bullock, home, for instance, was a project. We'd start getting the inquiries through. Can you quote us on this, etc. We would then give some indicative prices, and then our spec team would then handhold that through, if you like. So they would be discussing it with both the installer and the lighting designer and even the distributor to try and hold that through the process. So we're all very much cogs within an engine, and if we don't function together, it falls down,
Yeah.
and or the engine fails. And if we do function well together, then the job gets installed in both a timely and an efficient way that works for all those parties.
So Juan, in all of that, you've got, let's say we've got Inventronics there as your preferred uh, controls manufacturer, but do we potentially fall foul of the old equal and approved? Do you have to keep an eye on what everybody's doing to make sure that we're not losing quality for the sake of something that allegedly is cheaper?
Yeah, I think that again is a team effort, but we are quite important on that bit of taking ownership of specifications is something that we all designers need to uh, be very conscious of. Because if the equal and approve is applied and the designers actually look sideways, then things do not end up working and we end up not representing our clients. And sometimes designers have been blamed of not getting involved at construction stages, at handover stages, at commissioning stages, and that's quite complex. Sometimes we don't get the fees to get involved, and therefore that process falls through. So one thing is this thing about taking ownership is saying, look, regardless of the commercial side of everybody's work, we need to make sure that the service is there and that we actually get involved at this stages of design to have a positive outcome. But Mark was mentioning something that was quite interesting, and it's the figure of the distributor. In the case of this tailored product, some of the products that Inventronic has in their portfolio are they need to be tailored into the fabrics of FF&E items of architectural details of furniture. So the distributor plays a fundamental role. It's funny because you will see a distributor as a middleman that will only put another 20% on top of a fitting. But in the case of this sort I wouldn't advocate it constantly, but I have to admit that they have been very helpful in making sure that the end result in the projects where we have specified products happens. And it's another point of contact. It's another point of check. It's another policing. As you were using the word policing before. It's another policing point. It's another pair of professional eyes to check the specification to give the best results to our end clients.
Okay. And are you finding that across the board, or is the distributor? I mean, we know if we go out to the Middle East, the distributor has always been a very powerful figure because it's in the Middle East and that's the way they work. But are we seeing that also in the UK and in Europe with that sort of same level of input?
It's funny you say that because as I said before, maybe it's a figure that is the middleman and it's the one that puts a 20%. In the case of specifically about Inventronics and the way that their selected distributor have worked, has always been very, very, very beneficial to the projects and to us. In other places in the world, I have, as you know, John, I have plenty of experience in the Middle East, and it hasn't been the easiest of rides. I think that the figure again of the distributor in the Middle East is much better than it used to be 20 years ago, or even 15 or 10 years ago. And they are much more technically savvy, and they bring better solutions, and they're not that commercially hungry. So the figure is a figure that in a very complex world that we're living is something that can be very beneficial. And if anything, Inventronics has relationship with certain distributors, at least in the UK, the ones that I've been working with, that is quite strong and very positive in the whole outcome of a project.
Okay, can we look at the world from the client's perspective as well now? Because yeah, we know what a lighting brief is. Somebody tells you what they want. You say this will do it. They say thank you very much. Somebody builds it, and that's done. Except now, as you say, we have a climate crisis. We have a materials crisis. We've got problems with energy. We've got problems with getting stuff out of the ground, and clients are, if nothing else, they are very protective of their reputations. So when they're talking about their green credentials, let's just keep it as loose as that. That echoes straight down, doesn't it, into the work that you're doing, and that then has to echo out into to people like Mark and to the manufacturers and even to the distributors, because everyone now has to be part of that chain. It's more than a chain now. It is really it's an ethical network. And so you're asking more of the manufacturers than just does this work, and yeah, and how's that conversation going?
It's going better than it used to be at the beginning when we started asking the questions a few years ago now. It's going better. I think that manufacturers are more aware of the information, the technical information that we would be requiring, where their components come from, how they actually, if they have to ship them, how they ship them, how they work around their own production line and their supply chain, and they are open at giving that information. There's a lot more work to be done in terms of EPDs and making sure also that the data that we have starts to make sense, because I think it's easy to collect data and to give out data when you're in the receiving end of that data and you say, well, what does some people send you apples, some people send you pears, some people send you oranges, and you go like, well, I asked for a specific thing and you send me different fruits, and I need to make sure that all of the fruits have they've been in some way reduced to the minimum components so I can compare them, because it's impossible to compare a pear with an apple and an apple with an orange. They're different things. But they all have, in some way, they all have, for a better word, they all have their own food values, and so do the information that we receive from manufacturers.
Yeah, Mark, at the recent Circular Economy conference, we heard that in the EU, and I think we still class ourselves as being in the EU because it's all the same stuff, that new EU regulations are going to demand that if you are going to, any kind of green claim that you're going to make has got to be backed up with documentation. Is that something that, I mean, Juan has just said that, so they're absolutely right. Apples and oranges and pears and grapes, and how the hell can you put that into one number that tells you how good your building's going to be? But how then, Mark, is Inventronics looking at that? Are you then, I don't know, are you talking to manufacturers saying, how do we do it for you? How do we do it for you? You can't do it in a dozen different ways from a dozen different manufacturers.
No, and I think we're certainly looking at it. We will be compliant with that as whatever is required at the time. And I think one of the difficulties we've had as an industry is there's not been one one sort of protocol or system that we've all been using. So it's kind of all talked about. It's sort of all sort of asked about, the different TM66, TM65, etc. And it's not kind of settled into this is the way the industry should go. So as a lighting designer said to me a couple of years ago, is wherever it's going, even while it's unknown, don't sit back and do nothing because it's unknown. Do something, because when you get there, it will probably be something towards what needs to be done, if you like. So there is a bit of confusion out there. So it'd be nice to see when the legislation comes what it actually is saying, and as it approaches implementation, because obviously then we're able to then say, look, it's saying we need to do X, Y, Z. Let's do X, Y, Z. We might have been doing A, B, C. Maybe that's still valid, but let's make sure we focus on what's required.
And talking with Richard the other day, it's also clear that if you like, the Inventronics way of doing things and the Osram DS way of doing things are coming together in a blend, so that there will be one way going forward. So presumably, I mean, you will be learning from one another. That Inventronics will be looking to see what Osram DS has been doing about its environmental reporting, and similarly, Osram DS will be looking to see what Inventronics has been doing, because I mean they've got one hefty output of equipment there, haven't they, from their side of things?
Absolutely, and also I think it's speed, because if you look at Inventronics, they've very much been a startup. They started 14, 16 years ago, whatever it was, and it's grown very rapidly to being quite a large size. Whereas for us, we're a 110-year-old. Oh, sorry, what was us? AMS Osram, 110-year-old company. With old-fashioned legacy systems, etc. So, but very robust processes as well. So we bring to them some robustness, if you like, in maybe the approach. They bring to us some agility, if you like, in the way they approach things. And the mix of the two should be a hybrid that will be faster than AMS Osram was. But we'll bring to Inventronics the process side and the robustness of business processes and rules and regulations, if you like. So the mix is a hybrid, which will be far better than either side had before, is the way we see it internally and the way we see ourselves going. And we probably then should be much faster than we've been. I mean, we've got into that large company slowness, if you like, and suddenly some of that will be released. If you think about it, Inventronics primary sales are in power power supplies for LEDs, and that's what we do as digital systems, Osram Digital Systems. But there's the other part of Osram, automotive, opto, all the other bits that would sort of mean that our systems had to be geared to their businesses as well. So suddenly we'll be very focused in a very focused area, and we won't have to rely on ancient systems. And trying to get something changed in SAP on the Osram side was impossible, because you had to apply to corporate Osram to make that change. Whereas now we've got a new Oracle-based system that we're just in the process of going on to. Things like that will just be, we need this fixing, great, that fixes it for the whole business.
Well, we like the sound of this, because I mean, lighting designers never know where the next project's coming from. So, Juan, I can see you being one of the sort of the first specification houses that'll be putting pressure on Mark to say, well, maybe some of that heavy duty stuff from Inventronics might be exactly what we want here.
Yeah.
Yeah, hopefully. I think that at this stage, what we're actually looking for is to set the standards and the help the conversation, because legislation is going to arrive late, as legislation always does. And therefore, what we need to start doing is doing the job, as Mark was saying, start going in one direction with an aim, yeah. And surely that you might not hit the right spot in the end, but you would be closer than just not moving. And in that case, in the way that we are moving as lighting design, I think this is kind of interesting, is we're asking manufacturers to provide us with EPDs or TM65.2 certificates or any information that they have on that front, and adding that into our specification sheet. So when it comes to making a decision and saying the like-for-like replacement, then there is another level of complexity to deal with, and it's very difficult to move away from the original specification, because you would need to be better on that front too, and not just on the simple performance of a luminaire from a light output perspective, or from other technical perspective that are included within our data sheet. So that's how we can help, and that's what we're trying to do. Legislation will follow, but by the time legislation hits our desk, there might be no more planet. So we might as well actually start walking to in the direction that we try to actually sort out.
Yeah.
That
And
beforehand.
and hey, I love the idea, and I've said this myself, that the strongest defense against poor value engineering is a good specification, and that has to sit on the designer's desk, because if the designer's not asking for it, it never gets into the spec. And if you're asking for it, you're then demanding that kind of action coming out from manufacturers, which
And I
is
think
excellent.
just to touch on that robustness of specification, people specify in different ways. Some people say for our flex products, for instance, Italian made, which pretty much puts it in our camp, if you like. Some people specify the Osram name, and I would just say to any lighting designers out there at the moment, if you're specifying in the Osram name, please, please, please put Osram Inventronics, because then, you know, people can't then value engineer by saying Osram's gone, because at that point they'll then go searching for the Inventronics. Whereas if it's just Osram on specs, at some point, whether that be 3, 5, 7 years from now, we will rebrand to Inventronics, and at that point you want those specifications to still remain sound. So if we start doing that now, then when that rebranding comes, it's not a disappeared company, as often happens, and that's really important to us.
And that's one of the practical things. And I understand that a lot of the drivers are still going to go out branded as Osram for a little while, even though I think if you look at the small print, it will say manufactured by Inventronics. But that's what I heard the other day.
Yeah,
But
and again, some people say I've never heard of Inventronics, and I learnt something the other day, which was you take the Cricket World Cup is on at the moment, fabulous event if you like cricket. This is going out probably to a British audience, so they're playing that in 10 stadiums in India. 5 of those stadiums have gone stadium lighting, Inventronics LED, controlled by Inventronics. The other 5. There's only actually 7 converted to LED, and we've got 5 of them, and there's another 3 that are up for obviously conversion. So 50% of the total have already moved to Inventronics. So that's a huge positive sort of noise, if you like, or positive mention for the Inventronics brand, and that was
okay.
something I learned in the last few weeks.
Well, let me ask a designer question, if you don't mind, Juan. Um, we have been we've been told that there is nothing happening. All that's happening is the brand name is changing. That Osram DS becomes Inventronics. Carry on. But what you've just said is suggesting that actually what the Inventronics offer is, oh, by the way, if you like a sports stadium lit, we can do that as well. Now that suggests that there's already an Inventronics team on the ground who can actually do that work. Is there an Inventronics team in the UK, or is that part of your learning, if you like, your learning curve, very steep learning curve, to get you into that sector?
So Inventronics, the European business, EMEA business, was reasonably small in comparison to their overall business. Whereas for Osram, it's the other way. It was the other Osram Digital Systems the other way around. So in terms of, I think they had something like 4 salespeople across. Well, they have 4 salespeople across Europe, and we're in the process of knitting that together to the point that as of the Osram businesses have gone onto the new ERP system. The Inventronics business will go onto the new ERP system in the new year, at which point we'll be able to offer both Osram products and Inventronics products to our accounts, and we'll be able to sell them out of one system. So rather than having 2 suppliers, you'd have one supplier. And at that point, we'll have our 50 odd people across Europe, will then start heavily plugging Inventronics products. The portfolio is lovely because it's like this: it's high end, low end. This is Osram, this is Inventronics. Very little overlap, so it really is a complementary for us that we can then start chasing down other types of commercial projects or industrial projects, as tunnels, for instance, stadiums, etc., which haven't really been open to the Osram portfolio in the past.
Okay, Juan, is that a sector that you feel that lighting design is going to make more inroads into, because it hasn't really, has it? That's
In
really
what
very
sense?
much
Which
being.
the sector as in which
Well, we're talking here stadiums. We're talking tunnels.
stadiums? Well, we there's a lot of conversations that come out from what you just discussed with Mark, or what Mark was mentioning. First is how a merger or a takeover, or two companies coming together uh, successfully bring something to the table. We as Hoare at the moment are going through something like that, being part of the Tetra Tech umbrella. We have other sister companies that do lighting design, one of them being NDY, Glumac, Constantini, big
Yeah,
reputable firms around the world that do lighting design that we do. And there's enormous benefits on that. Obviously, we're all MEP companies there, and basically we're all in some way doing the same jobs, and we see each other as competitors before, and now we have an enormous amount of power for doing that. On top of that, if you ask what Mark was saying, which is if portfolios doesn't overlap, you start have a much bigger amount of expertise, and that is companies. In some way, those bridges that we were talking about working together apply to this sort of ventures. They have if handled properly, they have a lot of positives. So if you ask me, do lighting designers work on stadiums? Yes, we do work in stadiums. Actually, our sister company NDY is one of the most renowned lighting designers doing stadiums around the world. So fantastic, isn't it?
well, yes, it is, because it keeps quality on the table, and if we are here for anything, it's because it's because we all deliver quality. I'm just checking on the time. I think we've run over a little bit from where we thought we'd be, but I hope that's okay with you guys. So Juan, thank you very much. No doubt I'll see you walking the aisles at Light 23 in a couple of weeks' time. Oh,
Will do.
that's
You'll
that
see me. Thank you.
that's put a time stamp on this thing. So if you're seeing this in 2024, yes, we did, and we had a good chat. Mark, thank you very much. I'll be seeing you too. And for all of you at the other end of this, again, thanks for your time, and see you on the next one. Cheers, bye.